Peggle. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferret 64 with me, your host, YemmytheFerret. Hope everyone's doing fantastic this past week or this weekend. Whenever you listen to this, I hope you're having a good day. Ferret 64 is, of course, the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. And today we got some new games to talk about this week. Finished a couple games as well. Got some news and some coming soon. So let's just jump right in to the first part of the show, which is what have I been playing this past week? Alright, first things first, the Silent Hill 2 remake. I guess I should also mention I'm doing what have I picked up this past week. I'm going to make it into a monthly section because I think I was pressuring myself to buy more games than I wanted to. And with the monthly thing, I'll just buy games as I normally do. So if you're wondering where that went, don't worry. It's still going to be, but it's going to be a monthly thing. So it'll probably be the beginning of each month or the end of each month, depending on when the last Saturday or Sunday lands. Anyway, Silent Hill 2 Remake. So going into this one, a lot of people, including myself, was a bit worried because that initial trailer for the game, the facial animations were funky, and I think a bit of the vibe was off. Also, like the Comic Sans for the Silent Hill Ranch was pretty funny. Obviously a placeholder because they ended up changing that. Which is it's also funny that they changed it and now people are like, oh, I want to mod back in the Comic Sans font. It's like, then why did you complain in the first place? Besides the point. So Silent Hill 2 Remake has actually been pretty impressive. I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me where you start playing it and it's immediately kind of gripping and grabs you and it doesn't really want to let you go. So you like the game starts off like boasting these pretty impressive graphics for this generation. And you start off, you're in the bathroom and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and the bathroom just like feels lived in. Like the entire place feels lived in, but also like abandoned at the same time. It's a very nice tone to the game, obviously. And, once you start walking into the forest that surrounds Silent Hill, the fog is one of the first things that you notice that's, like, really well done in the game. Like, what was a hindrance back in the day on the PS1 era kind of consoles where, the FOV wasn't very far and, because of that, you couldn't, they had to use these techniques to, at least for this game, you can't speak for every game like Superman 64. I think they were like, it's the kryptonite fog. It worked a little bit better with Silent Hill too, because of the fact that it makes it a little bit more creepy to be walking around in fog. So that's kind of how they explained it away, and they use that same kind of like, there's lots of fog. But it's not it's not a crutch, I would say. It's obviously more of like an aesthetic this time around. So the fog is very impressive in the game. You'll see kind of like shadows and figures meandering around the dark, in like the fogginess. I was gonna say darkness. They kind of look like a dark blur, As you get closer to them, obviously that's when they become clear and you can start fighting them. And so you still, much like if you're traveling through fog on your own, there is a field of view around you and you can't really see too far in front of you. One of the most effective parts of like the graphical quality of this game was there's a part where you are on like the fire escape of an apartment building and you can look down at the street and it's a very hazy, like foggy area and you expect not to see anything because, of course, I'm in this apartment complex. Like, why would they load anything on the street other than like the things that are already there? But no, there was an enemy kind of wandering back and forth around the apartment complex and he was going in and out of the fog, and I thought it was very impressive. And you could of course hear them in the distance, and the little radio thing that you get that tells you when enemies are near was kind of crackling a little bit. Very eerie, definitely a very eerie kind of moment in the game, and it was very effective. And like I said, the graphics in this game are actually like it's very good graphics. It's probably one of the better looking PS5 games. At least that's what I'm playing on it playing it right now. This is one of the more impressive PS5 games, next to like Stellar Blade and Final Fantasy VII. What's this next one called? Rebirth. Next to those games, it looks very good. They did a great job with the graphical fidelity of the game. I don't think it looks as good as like Dead Space Remake, but I think it's definitely up there with those kind of like really high quality redone graphics and stuff like that. And obviously the jump between PS1 and did it come out of the PS2 or PS1? Now I'm not sure. Someone will tell me in the comments. But that jump between, I mean, even if it is PS1, PS2, it doesn't really matter. The jump is much more major than obviously going from PS3 to PS5. But they're both of these remakes are impressive nonetheless. And Silent Hill 2 definitely is impressing me with its graphics. It's also got some fun like little puzzle things in there and some fun collectibles to grab. It all looks good. It all plays well. I think the combat is serviceable. Obviously, what can they really do with the combat? It's hard. It's like I'm not a game designer, so I'm not going to go out there and like say like this is how I would do it. But I do feel like they maybe could have fleshed out the combat a bit more. Like I know that they've definitely improved it since that original game, but it just you do so much of it throughout the game. Like I'm probably about a quarter of the way through. I've been playing for maybe 5 or 6 hours, and I feel like the combat just kind of drags us down into the dirt. And I never personally played Silent Hill 2, the original game. This is my first experience with Silent Hill 2 in general, and I just feel like the combat is just there's too much of it, and two, because there's too much of it, it doesn't feel good. After the first couple of fights you get into, it really just starts to become boring in a way with the combat, where it's less intense because you're still mostly fighting one enemy at a time. And I guess that's where it kind of mixes it up, is when there's multiple enemies. There's an enemy over there, there's an enemy over there, and they're both coming at you, and you have to kind of work around that. Eventually, there was like a part where there was like 3 enemies around me, and then there was like a crawling one, like skittering around on the floor. So that did get intense. Like, don't get me wrong, like the combat can be intense, but it's in those moment-to-moment moments. It's in those moment-to-moment combat encounters where it's like 1 or 2 enemies, and it's just kind of like it needs a little bit more hush butt to it. You need a little bit more going on, because as it is, it's fine, but it's unfortunately nothing that like is really making me excited to go back and play it. Like I turn on my PS5 and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. We're gonna whack a couple enemies with the fucking wooden plank and maybe shoot them a couple times with the gun here or there. And it's not like it's making me not want to play the game, but it is like one of those things where it's like it's becoming such a chore that I don't really feel like going back to it as much as I would want to. And once again, that's not to say that the game is bad in general. I just think that the combat really, they could have done something a bit more with it. Obviously, I mean, really though, what are you gonna do? Obviously, with the restrictions that they have with the enemy design, they wanted to keep this as faithful as they could to the original game. So the enemy design is very much like inspired. It's very much a PS1 enemy or PS2 enemy type, where they have like a move or two. One of the main enemy that you fight kind of like spits acid out of its stomach, face. I don't know what to call it. and then they sometimes will try and bat you with their head. And there's also like a charge attack that they do as well that knocks you down or knocks you back. And that's kind of like I've been getting into a system of R2, which is like hit, dodge every single time, and they'll miss your attack. Every once in a while, they obviously the enemies, they do keep you on your toes a little bit, because sometimes they'll do like a quick spray or a quick bash of their head, and sometimes you might not be expecting that, because I do get into a lull sometimes when fighting these enemies. Obviously, the atmosphere and the puzzles and stuff like that keep me interested, but it's the combat that's really, I think, dragging this down. And I mean that's obviously might just be something that's just carried over, grandfathered in from the original game. So it's hard to be like, oh, the combat sucks. Well, it doesn't suck, but it's fine. But it's not like grabbing me. And I think that's mostly because they want to keep it kind of similar, or as similar as they could to the original experience, while tweaking it here and there. And maybe it's just me personally, but I would say it could have been tweaked a little bit more to make it a bit more engaging, a bit more fun to do the combating. Because like I said, at face value, when I'm playing it, it's not like I hated the experience early on, like, oh, the combat's so terrible. But it's because there's so much combat in the game, that's when it starts to become an issue. Every sidewalk that you go down has at least 3 enemies. Every corner you turn has an enemy here and there dotted around. Every major encounter that you have has multiple enemies that you need to take down. It just becomes so repetitive. And I feel like either A, they could have reduced the number of enemies wandering around on the streets just for that first part, possibly, until you get like the gun or something else, or until the town starts to get that, once you find a specific item, the town like kind of transforms a little bit, becomes very windy. I don't know if you want to call that transforming the town, but it's something, obviously. Maybe that's when you start bringing out like the groups of enemies, because I just feel like as it is, the first couple hours is a bit of a slog because of how much combat you want to do or need to do. And that's the other thing too. Like, yeah, sure, you can slip by enemies sometimes, but there's a good amount of times where the enemies they'll notice you and they'll start meandering over, and you gotta take them out because they follow you for so long. Like there's times where I've gone into buildings and I've been fighting enemies in buildings, and all of a sudden an enemy that was following me outside comes in through the window, and it's like, okay, well now I have an extra enemy to fight in these close quarters, and which is cool. Don't get me wrong, like that's nice. But it does also make you. It also makes you need to fight the enemies where they are and take them down before moving on. Especially if they notice you and start rambling towards you. It's like, well, I guess I got to take this thing out. But the nice thing is that when an enemy is close to you, you have this little radio that you pick up, and it makes like staticky noises when the enemies get closer to you. It's very important to use for like the little tiny bug creatures, because they're on the ground, they're just running, rambling around, rummaging around on the ground, and they'll hit you a couple times for some cheap hits if you don't realize where they are right away. Those kind of enemies are a bit annoying, but they're fine. What are you gonna do? And then later on, there's like these mannequin kind of creatures that they stay in like a specific position, and then they attack you either after you pass them or when you start attacking them if you notice them. They're kind of cheap at times. I feel like the placement of the enemies it's a bit Souls-like in a lot of ways, where they will put them around a corner, and as soon as you walk through that door, you don't even have a second to react. They're either on you or they're hitting you or something. And I feel like those cheap hits, combined with how limited your healing resources are in this game, it just kind of adds to some frustrations. Like, I'm already kind of getting bored with the combat, but now I'm getting a little bit of frustration because these enemies are just like dogpiling on me around corners or in groups. And I as soon as I find a health potion or health drink, I gotta use it. Or as soon as I find a syringe and I get into a fight, I feel the need to use it. So resources are very much limited, which is of course the basis of survival horror. Like, I guess this is more of a criticism for the genre in general, where it's like, but no, it is a criticism on this game, because if they want you to do so much combat throughout it, it's like I feel like maybe give me a few extra health potions here or there. Obviously, I could reduce the difficulty if I really needed to, but I don't feel like I should have to reduce the difficulty simply because they're not giving me enough healing items for the amount of combat encounters that I seem to be getting into. Or maybe they're just thinking like, oh, the combat's so easy that people won't get hit by the normal groups of enemies, the normal enemies who are just rumbling around. I don't know. Once again, this is a lot of complaining, I know, but I do really enjoy the game. I think that it's, I mean, this feels like a 180 on the subject, but I am really enjoying the experience for the most part. I think that it's a very nice and well done remake of a game that is obviously very old at this point and very unattainable in a lot of ways. The price for the resale of this game for a used copy of the game is ridiculous at some points. So it is one of those games that I feel like really did need that remake because the original game was just so expensive. So it's nice to have this. And once again, I'll probably talk about this later, but with the Dino Crisis like re-release coming out, like it's another game that's like over $150 some to get a nice copy of to even try if you want to play it. Now that's coming to PlayStation with its Classics Collection catalog. It'll probably be like $10 on there, which is like really nice. That's a huge incentive to just buy the game in general, is because the normal copy of the game is so much money. So you look at the copies of the original release of Silent Hill 2, and it's just like, to get a good copy of the game, you just have to pay a lot of money out of pocket. So it's nice that we now have Silent Hill 2 Remake, so that you don't have to scour eBay, scour used stores, go to GameStop Retro, and then buy the game. You can now have the game in your pocket for it's still a good lump of money. Like $70 no. Let me restart that. $70 is still a lot of money, but it's not like, it's an old copy of the game is like $150 to get a good one. So there is a little bit of like, okay, I can kind of justify it. But everything else about the game is great, though. Like, besides from the qualms that I have about the combat, I do feel like the rest of the game is really good. And if you only are focused on what I'm saying about the combat, which in total, I don't think the combat is like so detrimental that I'm never going to want to play the game again. But it's just one of those things that, like, take it with a grain of salt. Like, go into the game the way that you want to go into it, but just know that, me personally, I think that the combat's kind of doo-doo. I think the combat's kind of doo-doo. It's not like it's frustrating to the point where, or it's not like it's frustrating because I'm dying so much. Like, I've died a couple times, of course, but it's not frustrating because of that. It's frustrating because there's so much of it, and it doesn't feel that great. So, like I said, take that with what you will. I'm not trying to shit on the game too much because in general I do enjoy it. So, yeah, it's kind of like a give and take thing where it's like I have a bunch of positive things to say, like the graphics and the ambiance and the atmosphere, and the music is also really well done in the game too. And then there's like this other side where it's like, okay, but now I need to say, like, the combat, not enjoying that too much. Exploration, really fun. Enemy variety, kind of low. Like there's a give and take here with this game, and that might just be leading all the way back to the original game. I don't know. But for this remake, and for me looking at this with a modern standard, it's something that I need to come onto the podcast and say, these are my qualms. This is why you might be a bit iffy if you are going into this blind like myself. This is why you might not like the game, is what I meant to say. Going into this blind, this is why you might have some struggles with the game or might not like the game, is because of the immense amount of combat that doesn't feel great. But you might still have a good time, like myself, because the story is obviously still good. The voice acting has been improved, obviously, from the original game. The graphic style and the music and the atmosphere with the fog and stuff is all spectacular. So there's a whole side of that that's like, yes, there's a lot of good stuff here. There's definitely a lot of good stuff, a lot of nice improvements to the overall world and stuff like that from what I know. And I think that if you've played Silent Hill 2, you love Silent Hill 2, I think you'll also really enjoy the remake. Like obviously they obviously there's probably going to be like a thing or two that bugs you like most people with remakes. There's always something that kind of bugs you here and there, but I mean, it's a solid remake. They've done a good job, and just like with the Dead Space remake as well, they've improved things about the experience, improved things that were kind of annoying about that original experience, and they've made it a little bit better. And I remember seeing a post. I don't even know if I should bring this up because it's a complete different tangent. But I do remember seeing a post when Silent Hill 2 Remake came out, and someone was like, oh, they didn't do anything with Silent Hill 2 Remake, just like Dead Space Remake. And a bunch of people are like, what were you talking about? Me, myself, personally, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Dead Space Remake, they add, like, one of the major things is that they added a voice to Isaac's character, right? And they made the entire Ishimura you can go from one end to the other with they took away like the levels of the game. You can now, it's an open world kind of thing. So it was a very strange thing to see. And then like once again, Silent Hill 2 Remake, like they improved. I mean, you can't say they didn't do anything to this game. If they didn't do anything to this game, then they would have just re-released the original version of the game, right? But I mean, they gave it a great new paint job. They gave it nice voice acting. They, obviously they re-recorded some music, put some new tracks in there, and they also gave us some quality of life stuff as well. So I wouldn't say they did nothing to this game. They obviously did a lot to this game, just like Dead Space Remake and any other remake that you will find. There's obviously a lot done to it. Whether you appreciate those updates or not, that is a personal thing. And me personally, I do appreciate what they did with this, and I will continue to play it here. As the October month goes on, I do hope I'll finish it up by next time. But we'll have to wait and see on that. As of right now, though, I would say, I do recommend it. It's minus the criticisms that I have for it, obviously. I think they did a great job with it. And if you were leery about getting into it because of those original trailers, like myself, you can rest easy knowing that if you do decide to fork over some money for it, those issues have been resolved, and the game is a complete and nice package, all things considered. So there you go. So I did finish Until Dawn Remake as well this past week. And, once again, if you want the basics of what they did to this remake, listen to last episode. Everything's always time stamped. So if you go back and listen to that, because that's like a no spoiler at all type review for the game. I compare and contrast a lot to the original game, and I talk about pricing and et cetera, et cetera. I'm past that now. I'm probably not going to reiterate a lot of those points because I've already talked about that stuff. So if you want a more comprehensive, non-spoilery, surface level first impressions type review, listen to the last one. We're now going to talk about the Until Dawn remake in spoiler mode. We're in spoiler town, okay, folks? Yes, it got new graphics. The facial animations are still a little bit uncanny. What are you going to do about that? I don't know. You probably could have improved those a bit more. They left in the snowball that I was talking about, where it just retains its circular form and then it doesn't explode when it hits the one guy's face, which really annoys me because this is a remake and the original game had the snowball exploding on his face. Sounds a bit sexual, I know, but you know what I'm saying. So that was, and then also they didn't really improve the character controls at all. I think the characters still control pretty poorly. That's that. What I do want to talk about today is they added some new endings to the game. The main meat and bones of the game are still the same. So if you're playing this like the original game and you do everything you can to save everyone, you can still do that in this experience. So you can save every single character. You can save Josh. You still can't save the flamethrower guy, which I feel like is like a cop-out. But that being said, like everything that you can do in that original game is still able to be done in this game. There's no plot changes. There's no story changes. There's no scene changes. I mean, obviously they added some new stuff to the opening, like I said last time. But you might be wondering, well, you kind of spoilery said with a spoiler warning that the ending of the game was changed. And to that I say, kind of. Now that I've actually played the ending of the game, I can tell you right now it was kind of changed. Nothing changed in the actual ending scene where the Wendigos are inside the house and you're kind of like trying to get everyone out before you burn down the the cabin to kill them off, right? Nothing changes there. What does change is that after the credits roll, after you hear all of the interviews with the people and whatnot, there's like a new kind of like teaser, I guess, at the end of it where, is it Claire, the blonde-haired girl, Claire? She's living in Los Angeles now, and she's stirred from a slumber from her, because of her alarm clock, and then she holds up her hand, and there's like some sort of like symbol carved into her skin, and someone like bangs on the door as like the last jump scare of the game, and that's kind of like where it fades. It just cuts to black, and it's like, okay, so they're obviously hinting at something is going to be happening in a possible sequel to the game. Now, obviously, there is the movie coming out, but I don't think this was a teaser for the movie. But it could be. But I do feel like they're kind of teasing, like, hey, we're working on a second game or a sequel to Until Dawn, which I guess would be nice. I mean, I'm not going to complain about a sequel to Until Dawn. Until Dawn's still a great game. Even the base game and remake, they're still good. So I don't know if that actually is like a tease for an upcoming, the next adventure, or if it was just like a little bow on what the heck happened in the game. But there's also another way to there is another way to save Josh, I believe. I haven't done this myself because the way to do it is a bit unclear. People haven't really figured it out yet, I guess, but there is a trophy related to it, so I guess some people have figured it out. But essentially, you need to have Josh be remorseful for what he did. You need to choose a lot of the right and wrong answers, and then at the end of it all, I think he comes with you. He follows the one guy. I forget his name right now. But instead of getting taken by his sister, the Wendigo, he stays with you, and that's how you save him fully. Because if you follow all the right steps, but you don't get him to come with you, I guess, he gets taken away by his sister. He recognizes his sister, and his sister recognizes him, and she takes him away, and he becomes a Wendigo, right? And that's how you save everyone technically, and that's how you did it in the original game. But now I believe they've expanded it. And now you can actually save him, and he gets interviewed at the end, which is the new stuff that Rami Malek recorded for the ending, which we kind of were spoiled about during the lead up to the game. There was new interviews at the end, and the new interviews at the end were because of this new Save Josh ending. So, all in all, I gave it the same rating as the original game, a 4 out of 5. I think it's still on a base level. Until Dawn is a good game. Like, the base game is still good. The remake quality is nice. The new graphics, the new scenes that they added, the new the new opening to the game, fleshing out those characters a bit more, giving you more depth to that opening scene. The new, I guess the new ending is kind of like a plus, but it's not like a huge plus. But there's also those negatives that I talked about last week where it's like the characters still don't control too well. Some of the awkward camera angles make it awkward to move around, and the new totems, even though they're fun to find the new locations, it's much more annoying to find the hidden message in them because you need to rotate and up and down, and it's kind of annoying in my opinion. And of course, there's glitches and technical problems in the game as well that were passed on from the original experience. Like I couldn't click on things because that bugged out for some reason, so I had to restart the game. Or there was another what was the other one that I encountered? I mentioned it last week. I don't remember exactly what it was this week right now because it has been since a week since I played the game. But there was another glitch that I had that was also kind of grandfathered over once again from the original experience. And I do still have my qualms with the base game itself, like the whole butterfly effect stuff. doesn't really matter in the long run. It becomes linear, even though, like, sure, you can have Ashley die here, but if she survives that, she doesn't have anything to do in the rest of the game. She's just kind of a background character. Maybe she has a line here or there, but she doesn't do anything, right? Emily dies in this section. You can decide to kill her or not. It doesn't matter, because after that point, whether you have her die or not, she doesn't have anything to do in the rest of the game. And that's my main issue with these kind of games, is if you're going to save someone, one, it's nice to have them survive until the end of the game if you do choose to save them. My big, like, my big shame on you is The Walking Dead Season 2, and I bring this up all the time because that game is a total mess with this kind of thing, where it's like you save a character, and then an episode later, like you save the guy with the baseball cap and the beard, and he's kind of like he's that guy's like son or whatever from the beginning of it, or the second. I don't remember exactly what happens. You save him, and in the next episode, he gets tangled up in like a fence and killed. Same thing goes for there's this black dude who has a goatee. I forget their names at this point, but you can save him at one point, and then but in the next episode or in a future scene, he's randomly just dead in the chair. It's just one of those things where it's like, why give me the choice to save this character when you're just going to kill them off anyway, because you don't know what to do with them in the next episode. The same thing kind of happens here, but not to that extreme of a degree, of course, because Until Dawn Remake, or Until Dawn in general, like the characters that you save just kind of don't have anything to do once they get saved. Like I think that if you do save Chris throughout the playthrough, you do have the option of like having him stay behind and die because he stayed behind, right? But it's just a little thing. It's not like it. I don't think it's even animated if he dies. You just kind of see him hung up in one of those cages at the end of the game. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I do like the ability to choose things, and I do like the intensity that comes with it, where it's like, oh, if I don't hit these quick time events, they're gonna die, or oh, if I choose the wrong thing, they're gonna die, or their death will be in vain, something like that. But in the end, it's just a very linear course. And one of the big examples from Until Dawn is you can save Matt, who's the Letterman jacket wearing guy, and you can save him by having him jump off of the fire tower and onto like a cave. And then also earlier in the game, if you do all your quick time events and take all the shortcuts with the one guy, you can save Jess, who's like the girl who's got the blonde hair, and she's very sexy forward, sexual forward. You can save them, right? But the crazy thing is that once you do those things, once you jump off the fire tower that's falling over, or once you get to Jess in time to make sure she's alive before before falling down the elevator shaft, there is at least a 4-hour gap, or a 9-chapter gap. It felt like a very long gap between seeing what happened to them, right? Which is just so annoying to me, because it's like, okay, in the context of the narrative, like Matt should have been up and about long before Jess, right? But in the narrative itself, they kind of wake up at the same time and meet up at the same time, and it's like 5 hours later after the events happen. So it's like, oh yeah, they are here, aren't they? They are alive. So it's just one of those things where it's like, they could have died there. They should have died there. The developers expect you to kill them off, right? Especially on your original playthrough, your first playthrough, and they just didn't. They decided not to give them anything to do other than the final scene that you have with them, which is at the very end of the game. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. It doesn't work that well. Even though the base game, it's good for what it is, I would have liked to see more. Which does lead me into... Well, let me get a drink of water first. That does lead me into the Quarry, which we recently played on stream. We finished it on stream. And this is coming from the same people who made Until Dawn. It's very similar in a lot of ways. Quick time events, character choices, blah, 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 blah. they actually did a bit of a better job with the branching narrative, where characters that can die still have things to do, still have story beats, still have sections of the game dedicated to them, even after they could have died. One of the main characters that you can get killed is this girl Emma, who's like a YouTuber, blogger, whatever you want to call her. You can get her killed multiple times throughout the game. And they don't just sideline her character; she actually has plot relevance. Further into the game, you go back and play as her a couple times. She can transform into one of the werewolf kind of things in the game, and can mess something up if you're not quick with your quick time events and stuff like that. Same thing goes for this character named Abby, who you can. I'm pretty sure she can die at one point if you don't use the shotgun to shoot Nick, and but she has stuff to do in the game still. She has voice lines. She has a whole section dedicated to her. So there's still things that she can do, and there's actually things that she does in the plot that actually help you. She gives you the silver bullets for the shotgun, and you can save one of the characters, or you can use the shotgun in one of the scenes. So it's nice that they did that. It's very nice that they did that. So the Quarry, in a lot of ways, I think is better than Until Dawn Remake, but I would still only give it like a 4 out of 5. And the reason for that is there's a lot of nothing in the game at times, like character dialogue and interactions that really don't lead anywhere. There's also an entire chapter that I feel like is almost completely worth, like, it was just such a long and boring chapter. It was chapter 7. It's the flashback chapter to see what happened to one of the main characters in the game. I was just kind of like, I don't know about that. And then the other reason why I gave it the same score, because even though it's a great game, it has different things that bring the experience down. And one of those main things was there was like 2 choices that you could make, and it wasn't clear what the intent or whatever was going to be. So one of the main things that I complained about during my playthrough was there's a point where you're kind of like in the basement of the hunter's house, who are hunting the wolf people, the lichens, or whatever you want to call them, and they have one caged up in the basement. And the character that you're with, that you're not controlling, starts to kind of walk towards the cage, and you're supposed to press X to stop her. And I'm like, stop her from doing what? Because a scene before that was that he tried, your character, I think it was Ryan, tries to turn off or open the cages, but he gets zapped by something. And so immediately after that, the girl that you're with is like, she starts walking towards the box. And I'm like, oh, so you're gonna shoot the box or something like that? But no, she shot and killed werewolf Nick, and that got that character killed. And I was kind of pissed because it's like there was no indication that she was going to shoot him. I think that the camera angle should have showed her aiming her rifle at him. I think that would have told me like that's what she's planning on doing, or is at least the intent of the character. But instead, it was a bad camera angle. It looked like she was walking towards the fuse box. It looked like she was going to maybe shoot the fuse box, or maybe try to use the fuse box. I wasn't able to stop her from doing that. Kind of annoying. The second thing was a little bit later in the game. You take control of a guy named Max. And through events in the game, he gets untransformed from being a werewolf. And one of the things that you can do is you can decide to have him swim across this little lake area and get back to the mainland. And almost immediately when you get back to the mainland, there's no quick time event, there's no choice, there's no whatever. A random werewolf just comes over and kills him. And I was like, what the fuck? Thinking back on it, they were really pounding it in that hey, you shouldn't leave the safety of the island because there's water all around it and the werewolves can't swim. So it's like, okay, I get it. That was a dumb decision by me, but still, you don't give me any way of trying to rectify this decision or anything like that. Kind of annoying. The rest of the game seemed fine. The one thing about these kind of games that I don't want to praise it right now because I haven't gone through it again. But a lot of times there's really not a choice that you're making. But this game really felt like I was making choices every single thing along the way. Like I felt like the butterfly effect was much more pronounced in this game than it was in Until Dawn. One of the main sections being Ryan gets stabbed with a knife by this big guy he's named Bobby, one of my favorite characters in the game. He's very funny. He gets stabbed in the side, and you can choose to either take out the knife or you can keep it in. I chose to keep it in. And from when I was from my idea of when I was playing it, that obviously helps you because you're not dripping blood everywhere, so he can't track you as well. And two, it's going to stop the bleeding and let you survive up until a certain point in the section. So boom, there you go. Later on, you have the choice to use the knife that you have stabbed in your side to stab Bobby, and that makes him turn around and go crying to his dad. I'm wondering if you took the knife out earlier, you would just drop the knife and run away and not have it later, or you would bleed out before you got to that point and Bobby would just find you dead, right? The third thing that happens in that scene is one of the characters who has been bitten and is turning into a werewolf recommends I could bite you and heal you, but you would become a werewolf. So you can either choose to become a werewolf or not, and if you don't, obviously you die from your wounds. If you choose to get bitten by her, you heal and you're able to continue the game. So a lot of that, I feel like a lot of that can change. Like there's a lot of things leading up to that big event. So I don't want to toot its horn without actually fully going through it. Obviously, there's people who have 100% of this game, so they'll know better than me. But I do feel like that your choices in this one, in the Quarry, definitely have more weight than in Until Dawn, which is why I give it a bit more. It's a 4 out of 5, but it's a high 4 out of 5, where Until Dawn Remake's a low 4 out of 5, right? I'm not willing to put it into the 3.5 range or this game into the 4.5 range, but it's a high 4. Whereas Until Dawn's a low 4. You understand? It's a bit. I mean, obviously it's a bit. A bit hard to track it, but whatever. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. So, in the end, I enjoyed the Quarry, and I would recommend trying it out if it's on sale or if you want to check it out. I thought it was kind of fun. I guess I didn't really talk about the game itself, the story. Pretty much the story is a group of early college kids or kids going to college. They're camp counselors at this Hackett's Quarry, and they get stuck there because some lovesick guy sabotages the van. And so what happens is throughout the night, these hunters come to try and hunt down the werewolves in the area, and obviously panic ensues and the werewolves attack and blah blah blah. And then from there, it's just an unraveling kind of mystery type thing. And in general, I think that it's a better story than Until Dawn. Until Dawn has this whole part of the game that's kind of superfluous because there actually is no danger, right? Whereas the Quarry, there's danger almost every single step of the way. And there's a couple of red herrings in there as well along the way too. But if you haven't played it, I'll just let you figure that stuff out for yourself. As for new games, a lot of people have been talking about this TCG card shop simulator game. So I decided to pick it up myself. It's only $15 or whatever. So I decided to pick it up and play around with it. And I think that's a pretty fun kind of simulator type game. I think that it's got a lot of love baked in there. Right now it's in early access. And if you know me, early access games do not make my top 10 lists ever. So don't take this with a grain of salt. Take this with a huge knock on the head of even if I am super positive on this game at the end of the day and I give it a 5 out of 5, I'm still going to stand by early access games do not make it onto the list because they're not full releases, right? When it's fully released, then we can talk. But as of right now, it's still a game in progress, and it's very much shows it is a game in progress with. It looks a little bit bland. I think the character designs are fine, they're getting there, but they're not super detailed and stuff like that. I think that the shop that you inhabit, it doesn't have a ton of customization in it right now. Obviously, there's a checklist of things they are going to do with the game, which is great, and I am happy to be there every step of the way with them building on top of what they already have. But I can't fully judge this game because it's not finished, and that's a lot of these early access games are the same way, like Hades 2 and just think of any early access game out there. I can't fully rate it or fully talk about it because it's still an unfinished game. It's not in 1.0. It's in point whatever. But the basics are you open up a shop in this small town, I guess, and your goal is to just sell cards, make money, buy more cards, make sure that the prices are right and check people out. And as you go through, you build up your income, and then you can buy better packs, or you can buy boxes of cards instead of just single packs, or you can buy plushies, or you can buy card sleeves and all this stuff to sell on your shelves. And of course, you can expand your shop. You can do renovations, and which is pretty much just making the room a little bit bigger to put stuff in. You can host like tournaments and tabletops events that people pay per hour to sit at the table and do stuff at. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in this game. Like I really do appreciate how much work they put into the early access version, because right now, without it, like, it's not even a full release, but right now I feel like it's a fully fleshed out experience, just maybe needs a bit of a tweaking here and there. And the reason why I say it's a fully fleshed out experience is because not only do you sell the card packs, and you sell the plushies, and you sell the table space, but you can also personally pick up the card packs and open them yourself and try and get like the rare cards. It's almost like actually opening up a Pokemon card pack or a Yu-Gi-Oh card pack or whatever card pack you're opening. You're trying to get those hits. So you can find like $100 card in your pack and sell it in your store for like $120, and you can make some profit off of that, right? So that's like the cool thing about the game. Kind of gets you into the whole, like, if you don't want to invest the money yourself into buying physical cards, you just can buy this game for like $14 and pretty much unpack unlimited card packs for much less money than in the real world. And I've heard this said before, and I just want to say it here just to let you know, like, buying Pokemon cards, buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards, blah blah, whatever you're buying in the card universe, don't think of it as a financial investment. If you have a really rare card, like I think I have like $150 Yu-Gi-Oh card somewhere in my stash, right? Don't think of it as having $150 in your pocket. Think of it as having a very good card, but don't add the money into your account before you actually sell it, right? Because the value can shift up and down. It can just not sell too. Like maybe there's already 50 of these cards on eBay selling for $150 each. Your card might not sell. So it's like you're stuck there with a $150 card. It's worth $150, but no one's going to pay for that yet. So it gets lower and lower until someone finally wants to pay for it, right? That's the thing. So it is technically a financial investment, but don't think of it as like, you're putting in $10 and you're going to get $20 back every single time. No, that's not how it works. A lot of times, much like in the game, you open up a pack and the maximum amount of money that you would get for each card is like 5 cents each or 20 cents each, right? Which is exactly the way that it goes in real life. Like, yeah, sure, sometimes you get those hits and it's really fun, and it's really exciting. You get one of those rainbow holographic variants in Pokemon, and it's like, oh yeah, this one's worth $50 or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's really cool. Oh, hello, buddy. Hi. He just ran away. I think Randy needs to go outside, so I'm going to pause for a second and go do that. Okay, intermission over. So yeah, TCG Simulator is really fun right now. I think that leveling up takes maybe a bit too long to do. I feel like I'm kind of stuck in neutral for quite some time until I can finally get something new. And a lot of times when you do get something new, it's like, okay, well now I need to like invest $1,000 to get the license for this thing, and then I can sell it on my shelves for like, you get like bundles of like 6 cards. 6 like card binders for like $200 for a bundle, and you sell them on your shelf for like $70 each, right? So it's just like real world. But yeah, so essentially what you do is you buy the cards in like bundles of 32 in a box, and you can buy the ability to purchase boxes. So like you get like 4 boxes per set. And then you can also get like upgrades for those things. You can buy, then you can get, once you level up your shop enough, you can get the next best packs. And you can unlock the ability to buy those for like $500 to get the license, and then you can start buying them and putting them on your shelves. So, it's a lot of it's a lot of spending and also saving. I recently just bought the card binders to sell on my shelves, and a lot of times those higher priced items, even if you mark them fairly, they still take a bit of time to get off your shelves, which I guess would kind of be like normal for a card shop or something, or a comic shop even, to be selling like a higher priced item. Not as many people are going to buy that. But as I was saying before, things need a little bit of tweaking here and there. Like I feel like the scent dispenser. Sometimes customers walk in and they're kind of stinky. They have like a cloud of green around them, like an aura of green around them, and the dispenser, like, it sprays, but they don't get de-stinky. So you have to grab a bottle yourself and then spray them. I feel like it doesn't work as well as what they meant for it to do. And once again, like, the character models are a bit rudimentary at this point. Like, obviously, I think they're better character models than a lot of like the low budget simulation games that we've gotten. But they're still like a bit uncanny to look at. Like, they look good enough, but not good enough. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's an early access game. I can give them time to work on this and really improve the experience. But it already is a pretty good experience as is. So it's also like, okay, yeah, not, it's still a fun time. And I'm hoping that eventually in the future they make like an extension for Twitch where your chat can, come into the shop and they can tell their character what to do, like with commands and chat or something like that. I think that'd be kind of fun. Kind of like Call of Lamb did, where you could have a member of the chat join your cult, and they can do stuff in the cult by doing commands and stuff. I think that would be kind of fun. I think that would be kind of fun to implement in the future. As of right now, TCG card shop simulator, it's obviously exploding right now in popularity due to lots of different streamers and people talking about it. And I think that if they take this momentum and go forward with it and really push themselves, I think they can really make something that is special. And it already is pretty special. I'm not saying that it's like boring or anything right now. It's already a fun and special game, but with this momentum and probably the increase of sales and stuff that come along with it, I'm hoping that they really push this game to improve it a lot, and maybe by this time next year it'll be so improved and new that I'll be like, yeah, maybe I'll be talking a different tone, like, entirely, where it's like very just all positives. But we'll have to wait and see. I am planning on adding a best early access game into the Ferret Awards this year. So games like Hades 2 or TCG Card Simulator or any early access game that is popular in the year can get some recognition, because I do feel like a lot of these early access games are practically there, but for some reason they released in early access, whether it's because they needed to make some money to fund the game, or they felt like the game was ready, but they they wanted to get players onto the game to help start improving it or make it into what they want it to be. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly why people do early access so often these days, but it's helped a lot of games. It has helped a lot of games, and I'm sure it'll continue doing that. And of course, there are some games that release into early access that's like, oh, this definitely shouldn't have released. But this is one of those games that you have a pretty safe bet loading it up and checking it out. And once again, it's not like it's not super pricey either. So I think that it's definitely worth your time and your money if you decide to invest into this. Also, this week they re-released Backyard Baseball along with all the other backyard games. I think there's like hockey, football, etc. But Backyard Baseball was obviously the one that a lot of people had. And my friend Greedy Waffles had Backyard Baseball on a computer, and I do remember playing that with him. I don't think anyone's claiming that this is like the best game ever. Obviously, there's a lot of nostalgia behind this game, but playing it in 2024, it's got what I like to call old game syndrome, where it just it doesn't work as well as you remember it worked, or it's not as charming as you remember that it was, like it was back in the day. Obviously, it's still a decent game and it's still got a lot of charm to it, obviously, but nowadays, they give you the option to like turn off color commentary and the kids talking and stuff like that. I turn all that stuff, I mute all that stuff because it's pretty annoying and it takes a lot of time for them to say things sometimes. So that's one annoying thing that I've noticed. The other thing too is like there's no actual volume control on the game, so it's either super loud or muted, which is really annoying. Um, but let's talk about some positives, because there are a couple of positives about this game. One of the main things being the league play mode is pretty in depth. You build your roster, and you play your games, and it's like a whole season of the game being played. You play against all these other teams, and I think it's still to this day probably one of the best versions of a league system in any baseball game. Actually, I was playing MLB The Show 25, 24, 25, whatever it was this year, and yeah, it just doesn't have the same like charm or ring to it. Like it works. Like MLB The Show works, but backyard baseball seems to work better in a lot of ways. Even though you can't like make your roster better with trades or anything like that. I guess. I mean, you could swap out your kids, I suppose, but it's just a very like it's not that bad of a system. It works pretty well for this ancient game, this early '90s game. So backyard baseball, even though I don't think that it's super great anymore. Obviously, there's a lot of weird things that go on in games. I think that for what it's worth, it does like what it did back in the day and what it does now is still pretty nice. It's still for a baseball game for kids. It's got a lot of depth to it in that league mode, which I think is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive indeed. But yeah, I mean, to talk about the things that happen in game, that's just kind of crazy. I've had it a couple times where my the kid will slide into a base or run onto a base, and then somehow like a full like second or two later the ball hits the base, like the catcher, the first baseman or second baseman catches the ball and it says that the character's out. It's like, okay. And then I have had troubles with like pitching and stuff like that at times too, where it just doesn't register the pitch right. And it's like, look, I understand, like, if this was real life, it would be hard to visualize the box and blah, 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 blah. This is a video game. You should get it right every single time. It doesn't always work that way. I've also had it before, too, where you do, like, these crazy pitches, and if the other character, like, if the batting character hits the ball, something crazy will happen if they hit it. And that bit me in the ass so hard the last time I played it that I gave up, like, 2 runs because they like bunted on a crazy ball, which I guess works. And the ball like went crazy on the field instead of being crazy in the pitch. And I gave up 2 runs because of that. I didn't know that was going to happen. It was very shocking. And I was very, I was a bit peeved. I was a bit peeved. I'll probably finish up this league play that I'm doing and then call it a day. But just know that like it's an old game. It's got old game syndrome. It's got a lot of nostalgia behind it as well, of course. But for what it's worth, it's still a pretty competent baseball game. Still a pretty unique game, all things considered. But hey, check it out if you want to. Last thing that I want to talk about, which I know this section has gone on for quite some time. Last thing I want to talk about in this section is Stellar Blade, which I decided to pick back up this past week because I took a bit of a break from it. And I never talked about why I took a break from the game. And I'm going to talk about that right now because the issues arose back up for it. Look, the game looks incredible. It plays pretty well. The platforming is a bit janky, just like Hi-Fi Rush, but it's not really built around the platforming, right? I think the enemy designs are incredible, and the world design is great. It looks great. It sounds like the music is fantastic. The voice acting is good. The character animations are on point. But the combat just falls apart when there's more than one enemy fighting you. And you might say skill issue, And maybe it is a skill issue. Maybe it is. But when you're fighting multiple enemies, it just falls apart, in my opinion, because they designed the game around a parry system, but you can only parry enemies' attacks that you are actually focused on. Unlike with like Ghost of Tsushima or something like that, where you can kind of parry attacks from any which way that they're coming from. In this game, you got to be pointed at the enemy that's trying to attack you. You got to be locked onto them in order to parry the attack, which is very annoying. And also the gangbang is very high in this game. You get gangbanged all the time. There's a section where you're going through like a canyon in this like in this open section, and there's like 4 big dudes and a couple of little tiny guys, and they all attack you at the same time, it seems. And you can try and lure them out one at a time, I suppose, but it just takes forever. And like fighting one of those big guys is already a bit of a hassle, but now you're fighting like 2 of them at the same time, plus a little tiny guy comes around and starts biting your ankles, and it's a recipe for disaster. Like no amount of healing can get you through that. And games that are in this similar genre, like Elden Ring or even Liza P, seems to do the combat better simply because they work. They make it work. Like when there's they actually design the game around having multiple enemies in front of you to fight. Whereas with Stellar Blade, like even though the combat is crisp and clean and it works so well when you're doing like a boss fight or you're doing a one-on-one, as soon as another enemy comes onto the screen and they start attacking you along with the other one, it just becomes too difficult to manage that. And that's coming from me, the person who's gotten through Shadow of the Erdtree before the patch, the person who has gotten through so many Souls games and so many tough and rough experiences. For me to say that the combat doesn't work when there's more than one enemy on the screen, you know that I'm not being facetious, and you know that I know my stuff. And it's too annoying. This game is too annoying in that way. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people who very much love the combat and they don't have any qualms or problems with it at all. And that's fine. But for me personally, it just doesn't work. And, on top of that, the platforming is stiff and unreliable. And there's multiple sections where you need to do that stuff. And it just doesn't work for me personally. And if the gameplay isn't fun to play, then you're gonna lose me real quick. And the game definitely today I was playing for about 4 hours straight, and by the 3rd hour, I felt like I was ready for the game to be over. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be picking this game back up anytime soon. It'll probably be put on my shelf until I feel like playing it on stream. In all honesty. So it's unfortunate, and I'm once again, I think the combat's great, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't really work too well when they have so many enemies on the screen attacking you. And like I said, it's unfortunate because I was enjoying the game up until that point when they started to just kind of dogpile on you, and it just becomes too difficult to manage all those different enemies, and a lot of them aren't on screen. The camera angle is not kind to you. You can't see all around you, like a Devil May Cry game or even Nier Automata. Like the camera angle is zoomed out enough that you can see around your character. You can make sure that an enemy's not sneaking up behind you to do an attack, and even so, you have multiple ways to counter that. But in this game, it's just that the camera's too close to your character. They're zoomed way too far into your ass, right? They're too focused on that, right? No, I'm kidding. But it's just one of those things where it could have used a little bit of tweaking here and there to really fine tune the combat. That's great combat, but it just doesn't work in what they want you to do in the game. So yeah, once again, you lost me on the combat and the platforming, which are the 2 main things in the game, and I don't feel like going back and playing anymore right now. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what's in the news. All right, first things first. Nintendo has revealed some new hardware. And they've actually already released it, so it's not like it's obviously this joke would have worked better if I did a daily podcast. But the Alarmo is the newest thing from Nintendo. It features 4 different games or 5 different games that you can set alarms to. So to wake you up in the morning and start making noise as you jostle around and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, essentially this is a $100 alarm clock from Nintendo. You're paying the licensing fee for Mario, Zelda, Splatoon, Pikmin, and Ring Fit Adventure, I guess. But those are like the 4, right? 4, 1, 2, 3. Those are the 5 different scenes that you get with the alarm clock itself. So, Super Mario Odyssey, it wakes you up with the main theme song, and then as you jostle around and wake up, it makes noises and sounds from like Mario and coins being collected. Breath of the Wild, obviously, it starts you off with that beautiful Breath of the Wild soundtrack, and then you hear like Link doing like his yeah as you wake up, right? Splatoon 3 has like the Splatoon 3 soundtrack to wake you up, and then you hear like the splat sounds of the paint hitting the walls and stuff like that. Pikmin 4, very fun. You can wake up to the Pikmin 4 theme song or soundtrack, and then the Pikmin make noises as you wake up. And then Ring Fit Adventure, which is the oddest one on this list, it obviously wakes you up with the Ring Fit Adventure theme song or whatever you want to call it. And then while you're waking up, like the voice lines from the game start talking to you, which is kind of weird. There are also 2 additional themes you can get on the Nintendo Online. So you can download Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is weird that they can't just shove those into it in general, but whatever. So I was going to get this. I really, really was. But that price tag is just way too much for what this is. It's a very small alarm clock. I don't think it even has an OLED screen, It just looks very odd when you look at it. The screen is square and it's like got a circle black. It's a circle with like a red outline and then a black internal thing. And the screen just in the screenshots that I'm looking at, it's so bad looking. Obviously you can hook this up to like different things. Like I think you can hook it up to Wi-Fi and it can show you like the weather outside, and it can tell you if you have like an email or a text message or something waiting on your phone, I guess. But the main thing that you're going to use this for is, of course, to wake up. And they already confirmed that if you're in bed with someone else, it won't work. The noises won't go off. So it knows when you're sleeping with someone else. So, all you married and dating people, big L to us all, right? This is a clock for the true video game fans out there who just this joke isn't going the right way, is it? This is a big W to the people out there who are single and don't give a fuck, right? You can wake up with a Nintendo alarm clock. So the big meme going around was like, oh, what if you have sex while this thing is on? Does it make noises every time you move while you're making love to your partner? Well, the answer to that is no. It's disabled when there are... Somehow it just knows when there's 2 people in the room, which is kind of weird. It's available right now through Nintendo's website, and it was available at the New York Nintendo store. It's already sold out at the New York store, and people were a bit confused, like, oh, does that mean that's sold out for good? No, actually, the Nintendo Online official website will not lose stock. There's not like a number that they have. Like they don't have just 1,000 of these things. There's apparently enough to support as many as you want to buy, right? There will be a full retail release in 2025. So if you don't want to buy it through Nintendo's official website, then yes, you can get it at your local Target or Walmart or whatever, As for if I'm going to get this, obviously not. I would definitely wait for a sale on this. But then again, it's like, why would I even need this anyway when I have this? I have a fucking phone. Like, it's gonna rain tomorrow. Like, see right there, no. It's already doing more than this alarm clock does. It's like, hey, it's gonna be 59 degrees tomorrow, and for the forecast is cloudy with a chance of rain. Thank you. So already my phone does more than this alarm clock does, and I didn't even have to tell it to do that. I didn't have to. I don't even need to connect this thing to my Wi-Fi. Yeah, I can just use data. That being said, I think it's a fun novelty, but for $100, I don't think that's worth it for a novelty item. But if you're single and you love Nintendo that much that you want to wake up to the sounds of Mario or Splatoon or whatever, maybe you're willing to fork over that money. This does seem like something that a lot of people will buy. Don't get me wrong. I think this is gonna sell a lot of. I think it's gonna move a lot of units. Don't get me wrong. I think already it's sold like 1 million units at this point, or something crazy like that. Maybe not 1 million, but probably like 100,000 maybe. But I think a lot of like those tech review guys, those people who are Nintendo YouTubers, are gonna eat this up. They're going to buy it. They're going to talk about it, make videos about it. Maybe people will be more interested in it after, whoever, like Arlo or whoever talks about it, right? But for me personally, I don't think any sort of review or anything is going to really make me want to get this, especially because $100, I'll say it again, it's a lot of money for an alarm clock that really does the bare basics and won't even work fully because, I sleep in a bed with my partner. That big flex, I know. So it's not even going to work to the way it's supposed to. I'm going to lose a functionality because there's two people in the bed. Unbelievable. Also in Nintendo news, they are actually doing playtesting right now. Actually, the registration is full and the playtesting is ongoing. They're playtesting a new feature. So registration for it went live earlier this week. And they essentially said on Twitter, we will be performing a test related to a new feature for Nintendo Switch Online on Nintendo Switch. Starting 8 a.m. Pacific Time on October 10th, existing Nintendo Switch Online and Expansion Pass members will be able to apply to participate on a first-come, first-serve basis. Those of you who are wishing to apply need to have a Nintendo account, be active on the Nintendo account with an online expansion pass, be at least 18 years or older, or be registered in any of the following countries: Japan, US, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And pretty much the same day, only a couple hours later, because this post went live at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was full by 11 o'clock the next day. I apologize. By 11 o'clock the next day, it was full. So, yeah, it's one of those. It's kind of cryptic. Like, who knows what this is actually going to be? I'm wondering if they are testing possibly GameCube access with online stuff. Maybe they're testing 3DS applications. Or it's going to be something stupid that no one will care about. A lot of people are saying it's probably related to the alarm clock. Like, if you have the alarm clock and you have Nintendo Switch Online, you'll be able to like set the alarm clock to be programmed to work with your Switch. I don't know, but it's a bit weird. We haven't really heard anything about it afterwards. There wasn't like an NDA being signed, but in the form that you filled out, it did say like we are strongly suggesting not to talk to anyone about this, blah 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 blah. So I guess we'll find out pretty soon, either through leaks or what this whole thing was about. As of this moment, not really 100% sure, but obviously speculations are going wild. LittleBigPlanet 3 will be officially taken off the PS Store, the PlayStation Store, on October 31st for good. They are actually taking it completely offline, and then they're going to be taking it off of storefronts, which I think is such a huge L in my opinion, and many other people's obviously. This is still a full-fledged game. Like, there's still a single-player component. I recently played this last year, and it has a whole I never tried to use the multiplayer once. But it's just so bizarre that they're just deciding to take this game offline. I mean, I know they took the other games offline as well, but it doesn't make any sense that they are taking down these games. I don't know if it's because licenses have run out with some DLCs from these games or what, but as of October 31st, so at the end of the month, all the DLCs and the main game will be taken offline. So if you want to get a copy of the game digitally, you'll have to buy it for about $20 before it gets taken down. Obviously, there's physical versions of this game that you can buy. I'm sure that the cost of that physical edition will skyrocket after this is done. After this is said and done, I still have a physical version of this game, and I also got the day one's collector's edition that had the little Sackboy figurine. I think he's like right there. You can't really tell, but he's kind of like right there on there. So in a statement on Twitter, the developers behind LittleBigPlanet said, last chance to purchase LittleBigPlanet 3 for PS4 and the LittleBigPlanet DLC from PlayStation Store. After 10 years of playing, creating, and sharing content in LittleBigPlanet 3, the game and our entire range of LittleBigPlanet DLC will be removed from PlayStation Store on October 31st. Anyone that currently owns or purchased LittleBigPlanet 3 or any of the DLC before it is delisted for sale will still be able to access their purchased games and content after its removal. This is a friendly heads up that if anyone in the community or any newcomers still wish to own a digital copy of LittleBigPlanet 3 or any DLC currently available for purchase, this is your last chance to do so. Thank you for your continued support and understanding. Well, I don't know if a lot of people are understanding, but yeah, it's just one of those things that's like very, very strange. It's just like it just feels so random that they are taking this down from digital storefronts. It doesn't really make sense at all. So, and plus, it's not like LittleBigPlanet 3 is eating into the sales of Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Like those are two. They are two completely distinct and different games. You know, it's very I don't know. It's just very unfortunate. I'll say that it's very unfortunate. Let's switch over to Xbox news. Xbox is going to start selling games directly on Android next month in the US. So a court order was opened up, and Google is actually being forced to open a mobile store in the US, which will allow more choice and flexibility. The mission is to allow more players to play on more devices. So we are thrilled to share that starting in November, players will be able to play and purchase Xbox games directly from the Xbox app on Android. So starting November 1st, you will actually be able to download an Xbox app and download games directly to your phone instead of just using the Cloud Play, which is kind of crazy. The Verge was the source that broke this information, this news, and they also added that Google's Android App Store is an illegal monopoly. And the search giant has been ordered to open up the Play Store to competition for 3 years, which is kind of crazy. So that means that Microsoft can now sell Xbox games freely on Android devices with cloud features allowing users to stream and play them after purchase. Until now, Xbox Cloud Gaming had been exclusive to the Game Pass library of titles. So I guess, obviously now it's going to allow... So I guess I misspoke earlier. It's not Xbox that got the court order. It was Google that got the court order because the Google Play Store is apparently a monopoly. So now Xbox will be able to sell games directly on Android devices starting November 1st. I apologize for the little gaffe there, but we fixed it all in the end. So let me know what you think about this down below. Are you going to be buying any games for your mobile phone through Xbox's storefront? Let me know. Kind of in the same vein of things, Steam is now has actually been ordered to start saying that purchases on the Steam storefront are only digital codes. So they can't say that you're buying or owning a game anymore on Steam. Now, this hasn't been an issue for Steam. Steam hasn't been one to take away licenses and keys and stuff like that from people's libraries. Obviously, games can still be delisted from the storefronts, but you're still able to download them and play them even after they are gone from the storefront. One of the games that I bought a long time ago that's not available on storefronts anymore is... the original The Crew game, and that's still I'm still able to download that and play that, so it's not really an issue on Steam per se. But they were actually ordered to add that new there's like a new image or clause that's going to be added to digital purchases that tells you like, hey, this is a digital version of the game. It is not you are owning the license instead of actually owning the game, which is kind of crazy. But I guess with changing times, things need to be updated. And yeah, I mean, all these, 1,000+ games that I have on Steam, technically, yeah, I don't own them. Technically, I am just licensing out the game from Steam, but it's never felt like I haven't owned the game, right? I can still download and play them anytime I want. So I guess it's not as big of a deal to me personally, but I could see some legal issues with that, I suppose. But yeah, just kind of tie that into the new Xbox app that is going to be available to buy games directly through Xbox on the mobile phone. We'll continue with the Xbox news. Halo is entering a new dawn. The studio has changed their names from 343 Industries to Halo Studios. They also revealed that there is going to be a new game engine, along with a new philosophy for gaming. In the press release, they said if you really break Halo down, there have been two very distinct chapters. Chapter 1 with Bungie, Chapter 2 with 343 Industries, the worst chapter. And now I think we have an audience which is hungry for more, so we're not just going to try and improve the efficiency of development, but change the recipe of how we make Halo games. So we start a new chapter today. Everyone in this place is here to make this the best possible Halo games. The team is also experimenting with Unreal Engine 5, so they're moving away from whatever the old engine was, and they're making a new engine for the game. And they said it's fair to say that our intent is that the majority of what we showcased in Foundry is expected to be in projects which we are building or future projects. So Foundry is like a research project, I guess. It's a location made up of 3 unique biomes where the Halo rings were born, which allows Halo Studios to prepare itself for the next steps in making Halo games. I'm not sure what that exactly means, but the screenshots and video that they showed looked fine. Like, I don't think it was. I don't think it's like super crazy what they showed off. It does essentially look like Halo Infinite 2.0, I suppose. It does. I mean, obviously the details are there, and the biome is there, the graphics are there. But I wouldn't say that like this is like a super duper big jump. But it's still a jump. Like, that's the thing. It's still a jump. I think Master Chief looks a bit weird. His armor looks maybe a bit too sleek in my opinion. Like, there's something off about the character model. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but there's just something off about it. But this does confirm that they are going to keep milking Master Chief for all he's worth. And at this point, like, yeah, I don't like. I talked about this when I replayed Halo 3 a few weeks ago. Like, they proved with Reach and ODST that you don't need the Master Chief to make a good Halo game, right? But yet they fell back on the crutch of Master Chief with Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Infinite. And it's obviously, I mean, even though, like, yeah, I love Master Chief. Who doesn't like Master Chief, right? It's still like, okay, I think it's time to move on from this character or this story. It's time to move on from Cortana. Like, they keep bringing her back and killing her off and bringing her back, and now she's this new version of Cortana that's completely sane. It's just one of those things. That's like, yeah, the whole phase 2 with 343 has just been a bit of a bumpy road, and we'll see what happens in the future. Obviously, there's a lot of high hopes for this, but yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. The Alien Isolation sequel has been announced, and it's in early development. This is 10 years onward since the Alien Isolation game came out in 2014. They came out in a statement and said, to our fans around the world, it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since we embarked on our journey with the release of Alien Isolation. When we started developing Alien Isolation, we had only one guiding principle: to create a truly authentic experience that went back to the roots of the Alien franchise. A new story capturing the atmosphere and terror of the original 1979 movie masterpiece. It's been nothing short of incredible to witness your passion for the game over the years and see it reach so many players around the world. Your boundless enthusiasm, excitement, screams, and steely courage in the face of cinema's greatest killer have been profoundly rewarding. Whether you're a nightmare mode veteran or stepping into Amanda Ripley's shoes for the thrilling first attempt, we wanted to express our deepest gratitude. It was a dream project brought to life by a brilliant team, and the reception you have given it over these years is extraordinary. On the 10th anniversary, it seems only fitting to let you know that we have heard your distress calls loud and clear. Today, I'm delighted to confirm on behalf of the team that the sequel to Alien Isolation is in early development. We look forward to sharing more details with you when we're ready. Once again, thank you. Until next time, Al Hope, creative director of Alien Isolation. So, a nice message, and also a nice little add-on there with the next game coming out. It's possible that the next game is coming simply because Alien Romulus did so well in the box office, or because there has been a lot of love for this game over the years. Like, yeah, sure, the original reception of the game was a bit iffy. I mean, just look at that IGN review that gave it like a 5.9. Like, obviously, even though I'm not a huge fan of this game, I find it very bizarre that someone would give it such a low rating. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens now. Obviously, it's going to be a while before we actually see the game or anything about the game, I'm sure. But it's nice to know that they are making a sequel now, and I guess we'll see what they got cooking. All right, Date Everything, which was supposed to come out, what was it, like this month or later this month, has been delayed. They're going to be launching it on the 14th of February now, which is, of course, Valentine's Day. So in the new trailer that they released, the game's director, Ray Chase, made the announcement. He also provided an overview of what the title has to offer. So, of course, there's a three-dimensional house that you can journey around in first-person mode. Most of the game will be about, talking to objects and whatever. And, of course, you can form bonds with pretty much everything in your rooms. So that's one of the main things that the game has to offer, but obviously there's more stuff that will be unveiled when you start to play the game. So I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a long delay, but I'm sure it will be quite worth your time if you're into these kind of things. I think this is also more of like a facetious game too. Like it's kind of like a comedy game too. So I don't think it's meant to be taken super seriously. But, if you want to check this out, the new trailer's on Team 17's YouTube channel, and the new release date, February 14th. Okay, let's move on to what's coming soon. First up, Yakuza Kiwami is getting a limited run release with a collector's edition called the Classic Edition, and this actually comes with limited run is giving out a physical version of the Switch game along with the Xbox and PlayStation version. So originally they weren't sure, quote unquote, if it was going to get a physical release, but of course that was just them marking time until limited run announced that they are making a physical Switch release for the game. So if you want to get a physical version of the game, pre-orders will open on October 11th through November 10th for $35. If you want the Classic Edition, you're at the fork over about $75. That includes a spot glass premium box with slipcover, a soundtrack, a collectible acrylic standee, some cards, and character cards. Apparently, they are also doing a Classic Edition for each game in the series. So there's 7 games in the Yakuza series, 0, the original, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I believe, right? So they're doing a Classic Edition for all the games. So I think that they have Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza 2 or 0 getting a Classic Edition right now. And then later on, I'm sure they'll release more of these. So kind of fun. If you want to check that out, if you want a physical version of this game, make sure you pre-order that before the date ends. FOMO. The acrylic standee is just a terrible thing. I don't know why so many companies are doing acrylic standees now. They're annoying. They're dumb. Who wants an acrylic standee? But hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. Another Tomb Raider remastered collection is coming out, and this time it's 4, 5, and 6 remastered. If you don't know, Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation came out on the PS1 in 1999. Lara discovers the lost tomb of an Egyptian god who was unwittingly unleashed, and I guess she accidentally fulfills some sort of ancient prophecy. Tomb Raider Chronicles was also released on the PS1 in 2000. Follows the events from the last game. Lara Croft is buried in an Egyptian tomb and presumed dead. At a memorial, those closest to her reminisce about secrets from her past. So it seems like this is like a filler game. Honestly, if you're just doing like a bunch of she was such a good person. This is what she did. And then Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness came out on the PS2 in 2003. Accused of murder, Lara becomes a fugitive on the run while uncovering a sinister conspiracy involving alchemical experiments and the search for ancient artifacts. So, I think that these games were a bit mixed in their reception. I'm seeing some mixed comments here. But it will be nice to see them remastered, just like they did with the original trilogy. The original trilogy is actually coming around physical from local retailers like Best Buy and stuff like that. So if you want to check that out before pre-ordering this, there you go. It will be available on February 14th, Valentine's Day, to get digitally. I'm sure a physical version will come out eventually for this. I think this is fun. I like that they're remastering these older Tomb Raider games. Especially because they haven't made a new Tomb Raider game in a long time at this point. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was the last like new full-fledged game, so I guess we'll see how that goes. The Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 remake were pretty well received, so I am interested in checking this out too. All right, Terrifier 3 recently released, and they reveal that there's going to be a Terrifier video game. So this one's called Terrifier: The Artful Escape, right? The Artful Escape, the artcade game. So essentially, you play as like a pixel art, the clown, and you hack and slash your way through civilians in a beat 'em up style. And you also can play this in co-op, so one person can be your little helper. I just sneezed. Essentially you fight your way through police officers, psychiatric ward security guards, etc. It looks like there's actually 4-player co-op. I was wrong. There's actually 4-player co-op, which is nice. I think that's a pretty fun thing. I think that Art the Clown is perfect for a video game form. I don't know if this 2D beat 'em up is going to be the right style for it, but I think it's good enough. And if you haven't seen Terrifier 3, I did enjoy it. I thought it was very, very fun. Art the Clown, I think he's becoming a horror icon, and this game will help cement that. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's no release date for it just yet, but there's a Steam page that says coming soon. So we'll see. All right, here are the 14 games that are going to be featured in the Tetris Forever compilation. These games have been confirmed. Before we only knew a couple of them, but now we know all the games, I guess. So the 14 games are Tetris 48K version, Tetris from 1988, which was released on the Famicom. Hatris, which was released in 1990 on the Famicom. Tetris 2 plus Bomb Bliss. Hatris, re-released in 1992 on the NES. Hatris, re-released on the Game Boy in 1991. Super Bomb Bliss, released on the Game Boy in 1995. Super Bomb Bliss DX, released on the Game Boy in 1998. Super Tetris 2 and Bomb Bliss, released on the Super Famicom in 1992. Tetris Battle Gaiden, released in 1993 for the Super Famicom. Tetris 2 plus Blombus Gentriban, released in 1993 on the Super Famicom. Super Tetris 3, released in 1994 on the Super Famicom. And Super Bomb Bliss, released in 1995 on the Super Famicom. It seems like there's a lot of the same game, just kind of different versions for different things. The 48K version, I forgot to say this, was released in 1988 on the Apple II, so that might be a cute way to play Tetris as well. I'm actually kind of excited to try this out and play some of these Tetris games. I love me some Tetris, much like many other people in the world. So it will be interesting to check this out and just go through this old lineage of games. Now, like I said, a lot of these games are the same. Like, there's a lot of just like Hatris and Tetris over and over and over again. But maybe it'll be a unique experience. And once again, I believe this comes with a bit of a documentary attached to it as well, which would also be pretty interesting to check out. Aspyr is bringing Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles to modern platforms. Now, do keep in mind that this is the same people behind the Battlefront 1 and 2 collection, which was not great. They also did the Tomb Raider stuff, so I guess they have a one win and one fail. But essentially, this Jedi Powers Battle game was pretty popular back in the day. I do have it on my shelf. It was also a very difficult game, famously difficult Star Wars game. This will be available digitally on January 23rd. You can pre-order it right now. In the description, they said, "Take back the Theed Palace in a fast and furious lightsaber action game. You will have the power of the Force and your trusty lightsaber to help you ward off legions of battle droids, destroyer droids, assassins, and other creatures from Star Wars: The Phantom Menace." In addition to the base set of starting characters, this new version will allow you to play as characters that were previously locked at the start, like Darth Maul and Queen Amidala. The original cast will also be joined by 13 new playable characters like the Tusken Raider, the Rifle Droid, as well as a modern control scheme to go along with the classic option. In a press release from Aspyr, they said, "We've made enhancements to the character models, environments, and game modes based on the expanded post-PlayStation release, while also preserving elements of the original PlayStation UI. Enjoy smoother jumps, better balance, and new main menu art that transforms your battle from all the original versions of the game. Additionally, we've included an in-game UI toggle option for greater customization, and we brought back the Versus mode and Training mode from the post-PlayStation release, adding depth and variety to your gameplay." So yes, do I think that it's a nice re-release? Yes. Do I trust Aspyr at this point? I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. But it is nice to see more of these old, kind of more niche Star Wars games getting re-released, these games that are kind of lost to time. And if they're working their way through the PS1 games right now, it's only a matter of time until the Rogue Squadron games are re-released, or some of the PS2 and original Xbox games like Revenge of the Sith or whatever get re-released as well. That would be kind of nice. And with the classic catalog already having some Star Wars games like Star Wars Demolition and The Phantom Menace, I think that we're in for maybe some more niche Star Wars games in the future. I would really enjoy that, because a lot of these old Star Wars games I grew up with. I had Jedi Power Battle, and I still do. I had Pod Racer. I had Star Wars Republic Commando. I had the Jedi Outcast games and Battlefront, of course. So it's interesting to see them come back. I'm gonna hold my breath though until some reviews come out. It's gonna be for about $20, which I guess that's about as much as the game is worth right now on the second-hand market. But anyway, I want to see some reviews before I pick it up. That's all I'm trying to say. All right, Nintendo has expanded its Switch Online Game Boy Advance library with 2 more titles, and they're both F-Zero games. So you have F-Zero Climax and F-Zero GP Legends. I believe that F-Zero Climax was never released outside of Japan until now. So this is actually pretty cool. So F-Zero Climax, push your driving to the limits. This 2004 sci-fi racing game, only released in Japan for the Game Boy Advance system, is now full of game modes designed to test your racing skills at the highest levels. I don't know if they translated the game. They didn't translate the Starry games, so they probably didn't translate this. But the F-Zero GP Legend games is also from the Game Boy Advance. Pretty much has the same idea as this game. You race with the F-Zero characters. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. We finally are getting a game that was only released in Japan, in the Americas and across Europe. So that's pretty cool. Very, very nice expansion there. If you want to check that out, it's available. I believe it's available right now. Here are 6 games that are confirmed for Game Pass in November. So we got StarCraft Remastered and StarCraft 2 for PC on November 5th. Goat Simulator Remastered on September 7th. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 coming November 19th. Soccer 2 still coming November 20th, apparently. 9 Souls coming November 26th. And that's it. So I think this is a nice lineup for, I guess, November and September. Why? I think they meant to say November 7th for Goat Simulator Remastered. They accidentally put September here. I mean, not a bad lineup, especially the original StarCraft games, and obviously two first-party Microsoft games with Flight Simulator and Stalker 2. And then 9 Souls has been getting favorable reviews. If you like Metroidvanias that are a bit hardcore, this one's Sekiro's inspired. Maybe try that out as well if you want to check that out. And then finally for today, here are 14 games coming to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers this coming week. So on October 15th, you'll be able to play on PlayStation Plus Extra Dead Island 2, 2 Point Campus, The Dark Pictures Anthology, The Devil in Me, Grease, Return to Monkey Island, Ghostbusters Spirit Unleashed, Firefighting Simulator The Squad, Overpass 2, Tour de France 2023, and Ghost Recon Wildlands. All those will be available on the extra tier. And then your premium tier games, The Last Clockwinder for the PSVR 2, Dino Crisis for the PS1, Siren for the PS2, and R-Type Dimension EX that was originally released on the PS4, which I think is just a re-release of the game. So I think this is a good lineup. If you haven't played Dead Island 2, get on that. If you haven't played Grease, it's a decent game. Return to Monkey Island was also pretty fun. I didn't finish it, but it was still pretty fun. And then Dino Crisis is the big one here. Dino Crisis is the big one. It'll be very interesting to see how that's received in 2024. And that's about it. Let's go ahead and do Guess That Song, everyone's favorite moment. If you know the name of the song and the game that's from, let me know in the comments below or in the Discord in the Ferret64 section. I'll give you a heart in the comments on YouTube and a congratulations, or I will give you a super reaction in the Discord. Let's hear today's song right now. Okay, if you know the name of the song and the game that it came from, let me know in the places I told you. All right, folks, that about wraps it up for me today. I appreciate you listening or tuning in to this episode of Ferret64. If you want to check me out, I'm on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, etc., all at YemmytheFerret. I also have a VODs channel, YemmytheFerret VODs. I'm also running a new channel called Ferret Football, where I recap my favorite games from the week. This most recent episode of the recaps was probably my best one yet. I've only done 3, so it's a small pool to choose from, but I think that it's a pretty good one. This most recent one's pretty good if you want to check that out. Also, I stream on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're doing some spooky games right now. We're playing Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, so I do expect to finish that by the end of the week. So I'll talk about that next week. And the other podcast I run is Film Freaks with a Z at the end. We recently talked about the Resident Evil movie from 2002. The next episode is going to be about Reign of Fire, also from 2002. If you want to check that out. All right, folks, have a nice rest of your day and or weekend and or week. I'm YemmytheFerret, and I'm out of here. So long.
The Ferret64 podcast is owned and edited by YemmytheFerret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by YemmytheFerret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Ferret64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.